Do you think you could pack your entire life in your vehicle, hand your keys over to a stranger in the US, and hope that everything makes it over to Europe in one piece? This may sound like an overwhelming task, and honestly, the anxiety and stress of handing your keys over to your house to a complete stranger is kind of crazy. But once you break down the logistics, the paperwork, and a little bit more of the process, it gets a lot easier. If you're new here, my name is Alex and I am traveling around the world in our DIY ambulance camper with my girlfriend Crystal and our dog Lincoln. In August of 2025, we decided to ship our ambulance camper over to Europe from the US. This seemed like a massive task at the time, and to start out, we had no idea what we were looking at, and it was just a ton of research, other helpful YouTube videos, online forums, all kinds of stuff, but the information is spread across so many areas that I was hoping that I could combine a bunch of this into one video to help you out if you're looking to send your van, motorhome, anything over from the US to Europe. We decided that we wanted to be traveling on this side of the world for over a year. It ended up being a better idea to ship our vehicle over instead of renting one on this side of the world, since we were going to be here for a longer period of time. If you're only coming over for about 3 to 6 months, it may be a better option to look into renting a motorhome or van or something like that over here. But if you're staying for a longer period of time, the cost gets spread out over time and it might be a better option for you to ship. In this video, we're going to cover some of the step-by-step process of what we went through, who we used, and maybe we can help you out. The first thing is you need to choose your shipping method. There are 3 big shipping methods in order to ship your vehicle anywhere pretty much in the world, and that is going to be roll-on, roll-off, or RORO. This is where you literally hand your keys over to somebody and they drive your vehicle onto the ship and drive it off and you pick it up wherever it's at. Ours had to be RORO because we are a larger vehicle. We couldn't fit in a container. Option 2 would be a container. So if you have a smaller vehicle and you can fit inside of a cargo container, then you can buy or rent a whole cargo container, drive your vehicle in, lock it up, and then you pick it up on the other side. Nobody has access to your vehicle, which is fantastic if you can fit in there. And sometimes you can buy a larger container in order to fit multiple vehicles in, so you can split the costs if somebody else is traveling that same route. The third option, which I believe is fairly new, is called a flat rack. It's basically an open side container, so you can still fit a larger vehicle on there, and it gets stacked on top of the other containers on the ship. The downside with this is that your vehicle is then outside in the open air, going across the Atlantic for however many weeks that is, and the salt air and everything can get to it, so that can be a little bit of an issue, but if you wash it on the other side, I don't think it's that bad. A flat rack can also be quite a bit expensive, but the benefit to it is that you don't have to hand your keys over. Everything is locked up just like you are in a container, except it works for larger vehicles. So the one we went with was RORO, like I said, because our vehicle was much larger and we couldn't fit in the container, and flat rack just was not worth it to us. The one downside is when you do hand your keys over to a stranger, they have access to your vehicle the entire time, from the time you hand the keys to them till you pick them up wherever your vehicle is going. Gets a little nerve-wracking handing the keys over to your whole home to a stranger and just hoping and praying that everything makes it okay. Once you figure out what shipping method you want to use, the next thing you want to do is find your shipping carrier. And honestly, there's really 2 big ones that everybody uses for shipping their motorhomes or vans, overland vehicles, and that is going to be IVSS and SeaBridge. Now, if you are down south, there are some other smaller companies, but honestly, IVSS and SeaBridge are the 2 that cover pretty much the entire world, and they do a fantastic job. We decided to go with SeaBridge. I found that SeaBridge's customer service was much higher quality than IVSS. Both prices were just about the same, so that really wasn't a big deciding factor, but SeaBridge really broke down every individual cost that we were going to be seeing in this whole entire thing, which was super nice. They send you documentation that helps you with driving in Europe, insurance that you may need, any step-by-step process that you need to do on the shipping port and the receiving port, anything you need to do in the middle, and also tracking your vehicle. SeaBridge just broke everything down and really made this process super simple, and their customer service was very responsive to any questions that I had along the way. Since we did use RORO shipping for our vehicle, this is the main thing I'm going to cover here because that is where I have all of the details. If you're looking for details on cargo container shipping or flat rack, maybe reach out to SeaBridge or IVSS directly. They would be able to help much more. The next thing we're going to cover is how is the cost calculated. Roll on, roll off shipping is done slightly different. The weight isn't as big of a factor. They are more worried about the cubic meters measurement of your vehicle. So the max height, width, and length of your vehicle is going to come up with the overall cubic meters. Really what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to measure the absolute max of each dimension on your vehicle. So if your mirrors come in, fold your mirrors in because that'll save you a couple bucks and all of that. Just for reference, we have these big black boxes on top of our roof that we use for storage. Now they are bolted on and I could have unbolted them and put them inside, but for convenience, I left them on. To leave them on, that added about an extra 12 inches of height to our overall vehicle height. Even though they're in the back, it's the height, and that height carries the whole way along because that is the max height. So to leave those boxes on cost me an extra $500 US for shipping. Now, in the end, the convenience was well worth it just so I didn't have to deal with it when we got to Belgium. But just know that if you have anything hanging off the back or the front and all of that, make sure you take those max measurements and make sure you get it right the first time so you don't get hit with some unexpected charge when they do a measurement at the port and figure out that you're larger than you actually said you were. For a quick quote, IVSS does have an online calculator. You can put everything in, submit your information. They send you a quote within a few minutes, which is super nice. SeaBridge also has something similar where you send them all the information. They really send you a nice itemized breakdown of what the cost would be and different options. The next thing you need to do is choose your route. We decided we wanted to go from Baltimore, Maryland to Antwerp, Belgium. For us, it just seemed like the most efficient route, especially since we're originally from Pennsylvania. It was easy drop off in Baltimore, and then Antwerp, Belgium was a very easy port to import our vehicle to, and there was a lot of good reviews from other overlanders and motorhome people that said Antwerp was definitely the way to go. There are other options that a lot of Europeans actually ship into Nova Scotia, so they don't have to worry about their time, their visa time in the US. And this is something you should consider if you're going from the US to Europe. Remember, if you are heading to Europe, you have to worry about the Schengen zone, and that 90 days, which I'm not going to cover here because that's a whole nother beast. That 90 days starts counting as soon as you land in the Schengen zone. So if you're waiting on your vehicle, that's counting towards your visa time there. So another option would be that you could ship into the UK where you get 6 months instead of 90 days. But that's all going to depend on how your travels look for you. Now let's go over the cost breakdown of what it costs us to ship our vehicle. So our total volume or cubic meters was 62.2 cubic meters. Our weight was 6,600 kilograms. We went from Baltimore, Maryland to Antwerp, Belgium. And the total cost for just the freight, the shipping, was €4,564.58. We also had additional insurance, which the line item here on the marine insurance says from 300. It's really going to go by the total value of your vehicle. So our total insurance was €850. And there are some additional fees that you have to pay in the ports. You need to have an escort to be able to take your vehicle onto the port. So that was $75. And then you also have to pay the forwarder and port charges, which you head into their office. They give you all the paperwork. Just their administration fee basically is that extra $300. If you count everything with the shipping costs, the insurance, and all the little fees that went along with it, we were just shy of about $7,000 to ship across the Atlantic. Once you have your quote and your costs and your route and all of that figured out, then you need to get your vehicle ready. The big thing that they do say is basically clean counters. When they look in your vehicle, they want to be able to see that it looks or appears empty. Technically, you're not supposed to have anything in the vehicle, but it's a motorhome and they know that there's going to be stuff in there. It's just near impossible to ship everything separately. So when they look in the door, it should appear empty. Now for us, we did bring our bikes in from the outside, and our bikes were up on the bed, strapped down, mounted, and we did have our awning, which normally hangs off the side. We had our awning on the floor, but everything else was basically in drawers in our garage and all of that. So everything was put away, and we didn't really have any high valuables in here either because we didn't want to have to worry about things getting stolen. So make sure you take your laptops, cameras, all of that with you. Just one less thing you have to worry about. The other big thing you have to worry about is lithium batteries. So this rule seems to be changing a lot, and it changed every time I looked at it when we were getting ready to ship last August. But as of right now, what it looks like is most shipping companies will allow you to keep your lithium batteries, your house batteries, as long as they're bolted down and part of the vehicle. So if you have them bolted down in your cabinet, they're not going to bother with you. The one thing that you cannot take is portable lithium batteries. If you have power tools that have the lithium batteries that go into your power tools, or an e-bike, those batteries are technically not allowed to be in your vehicle for shipping, and you'll have to take them separately. The other big thing is propane or gas. So if you have propane in your vehicle like we do, we carry the portable bottles in the US, the 20-pound bottles, just the ones you can exchange at the gas station. Going from the US to Europe, you just have to make sure that they are completely empty, make sure the valve is open, and you can prove that it's empty by shaking it, and you're good to go. This goes with the ones that are mounted underneath as well. Going from the US to Europe, there is no certification test or anything. That just has to be empty, and I guess they take your word on it. They never checked ours, so it's not that big of a deal. The one thing I did find out is when we're coming back from Europe to the US eventually, in that route, they actually require an empty certification. So you have to take it somewhere, and it costs a few €100 apparently to certify that your tank or bottle is empty. For us, we're probably just going to get rid of our propane bottle since it's a portable one. But if you have a propane tank that is attached to the underside of your vehicle, when you come back from Europe, you will have to certify that it is empty, and it can cost quite a bit of money to do that. So just keep that in mind and in your budget for when you're ready to come home. The other thing with fuel, you have to make sure that your fuel tank or diesel tank is at about a quarter tank. They don't want you to have a full tank, half tank. They really ask that it is quarter. I think ours was slightly over when we made it to the port, but wasn't a big deal. But just make sure that you don't top off before you get to the port. They want it only at a quarter tank. Now it's time to head to the port. This is where you will need your title, your registration, insurance, all the paperwork for your vehicle. And if you go with SeaBridge or IVSS, they will lay out exactly what you need to have. If you do have a loan on your vehicle, I think it's slightly different, and you might need to have some type of power of attorney or approval in order to do that. Make sure you check with that with your shipping carrier to see exactly which paperwork you need. But for us, it was vehicle registration, title, and insurance, and we were all set. Of course, make sure you have your passport when you go to. The first step you're going to do when you go to the port is you're going to meet with your forwarder. So that is going to be the person that has all of your paperwork. They're going to have your customs declaration, your shipping invoice, and all of the shipping paperwork that you need. So when you go to the port, you will have all the paperwork that needs to go to each step along the way. After you have all of that paperwork in hand with copies, you're going to head over to your port escort. So in order to get onto a shipping port, you will have to get an escort. Now in Baltimore, there is an escort service outside of the shipping area in like a hotel parking lot. And you go there, pay them a couple bucks. They drive you onto the port, and they literally take you around to each step. So you'll have to go to the customs office and some other places on the port before you end up in the final spot where you hand your keys over to a stranger. When that escort does take you around, they did a fantastic job, explained everything, and help you through the whole process to make it very streamlined. But you'll have copies of all of your paperwork, and you'll have to hand them the copies. My escort actually had it to where she said, hey, put them in this order, each of the papers in this order, because this is where they're going to want to see them. And they did a fantastic job. They really know what they're doing. So a couple bucks you pay ends up saving you a lot of time. And honestly, you can't get on the port without them anyway. So The last thing is going to be your inspection and handoff. You park at a motorhome vehicle drop-off area, somebody comes out and they take your keys. For us, they just did a quick little walk around the outside, but I believe they can also do an inspection of the inside if they wanted to. Ours was literally probably 30 seconds. He walked around, said, "Give me your keys," and that was it. He left. So it was very, very easy. And then the escort will drive you back out of the shipping area. So make sure you have a ride to get back home or to your hotel. One of the things in Baltimore, at least, and I'm not sure if this is the same in different ports, is we had to drop our vehicle off a week early. So it actually sat in Baltimore port for a complete week before it even got on the ship. Once it was on the ship, transit time across the Atlantic took 2 weeks before we could pick it up in Antwerp, Belgium. We put Samsung smart tags. You can also use your Apple tags or any other tracking tags. I put a couple in here in case they were found and taken, but while it's in port, it allows you to track where your vehicle is as phones walk by and all that. Makes it fantastic. Once your vehicle is on the ship, there is a website called MarineTraffic.com, and then you can actually track the ship in real time as it is going across the Atlantic, and you can see when it lands in your port over on the other side of the sea. This is something that I was checking all the time, even though it wasn't moving very fast. This is one of those things where when your entire house is in the middle of the Atlantic, you want to know exactly where it's at all times. After we dropped the vehicle off in the port, we went back to family house in Pennsylvania, and we waited about a week or two before we flew into Belgium. We only wanted to be in Belgium for a few days. That way our Schengen time clock wasn't clicking away just sitting in a hotel room, but we also wanted to be there a few days early in case the vehicle arrived early. So make sure you have your plane tickets, your hotel, Airbnb, whatever the case is, in order to get all the way over. You also want to make sure that you were there on time, because if the ship does arrive early and your vehicle is sitting in the port, you could incur storage fees while your vehicle's sitting in the port if you don't pick it up right away. To pick up your vehicle in Antwerp, it was super easy. SeaBridge had somebody waiting for us, a helper at the port. We met up with him. He helped with the paperwork right at the port. It took maybe 20 minutes. I went in, grabbed the vehicle, came out. They did a quick walk around inspection, and we were on our way. The one thing they did want to make sure of is that you have insurance. So we use a company called Tourer Insure. It is a little expensive, and it's only a third-party liability insurance, but it works well, and it covers majority of Europe, the UK, but you're going to want, they're going to check for the insurance. They're going to check your title or registration to make sure you're the owner of the vehicle, your passport. The last thing they want to see is that you have a license plate on the front and the back. So if you only have one license plate, you might want to try to get a second one. That way there is no issue when you get to port to be able to drive off, because they are going to check that you have two. The other thing I want to mention is that when you are shipping, that license plate theft is a big one. So apparently people like to collect license plates, the people that are on the ships, so sometimes they will steal your license plate. Having an extra one is always a bonus anyway, so at least you have one and instead of none when you get to Europe. They do allow you to take your license plate off after your inspection in the US, so you could take them off, stash them inside, or take them with you and then put them back on when you arrive in your receiving country. One final note is you do want to make sure before you drop off your vehicle, take photos and video of everything, inside, outside. That way, if there is any damage that happens when you arrive in your receiving country, you can then prove that that damage was not there. What we did is, before I took it onto the port, I literally took videos of everything inside, also took some photos, same with the outside, all the way around the roof, the whole 9 yards. And then when we got to Antwerp, I checked everything, but I also did photos and videos again of everything, just in case it was something that I missed in the mix of things, that we then had video proof for when we received it, that, hey, this damage was here. And then you can submit those claims to insurance, which you ended up paying an arm and a leg for anyway. So thankfully, when ours arrived, we had no damage, no theft, nothing, and we were just ready to hit the road. But make sure you have that video and photo evidence, because that will really help with insurance claims. When you're doing this shipping process, always use a shipping broker. If you try to reach out directly to the shipping carriers themselves, a lot of times they don't deal with individuals. Using somebody like SeaBridge really makes this easy because make sure that the paperwork isn't the hardest part of the process. The hardest part of the process, honestly, is the anxiety of handing your keys over to a stranger and hoping your house ends up on the other side of the world. But thankfully, we did that. We grabbed our keys in Antwerp and we headed off onto a new continent and new adventure, and it was well worth it. We have been having a fantastic time on this side of the world, and it really opens up a whole new level of adventure over here. Really hope this video helped you out and helped ease some of this process for you. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them in the comments below. I will help out as much as I possibly can. Really hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, we'll see you later.